You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinezic.
Welcome back to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast presented by Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Kinezic, and welcome to episode 168. And Fran, how confident are you that that's going to record everything this time? Because we usually do my backup recording. I'm not doing it. I
feel confident, although before this is the second time we've hit start because I said I was ready, and then I wasn't. And then I hit start and realized even though I had split screen up, I hadn't reduced our script down enough for me to actually read it.
Yeah. Well, good thing that I say some things before you, so you get a little bit of time to do that while I say this.
Listen, not that we even have a script for our listeners. Like, we have our questions. We have intro and outro reminders. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like Tom says episode 168. Fran has a response. Tom introduces guest. It's more like an outline.
Yeah.
But like, I always have my first intro kind of written down so that I remember because I've messed it up multiple times. And I could only see, welcome back to the Nate.
Yeah,
and that was it. I was like, go figure.
It's pulling back the curtain, Fran.
Yeah,
Everyone
there you
likes to see it. How many times have we done that same description? But anyway, we have a really, really special guest today. But before we get to him, there is a call I usually do at the end of our episodes, but I'm going to do it at the beginning because I haven't done it at the beginning in a while.
Oh, what's that?
And that's asking for 5-star reviews. Fran and I are both on our knees. We're waiting for these reviews. We need 5-star reviews. We're begging. We're pleading. Those really go a long way with, especially with Apple in promoting this podcast. So if you haven't done that, I know so many people already have, but if you haven't done that already, we really appreciate it if you do that. And if you do the little write-up with it, then I give you a shout out on our Buzz episodes.
And I will say this, we are being greedy a little bit. It's not like we don't get them or we're void of reviews. We just want more. It's what have you reviewed for me lately?
Yeah. I see the chart and it says that we have less 5-star reviews than last time, and like in the monthly metrics.
Right.
So yeah, I figured I'd ask up
in
front.
that respect. Yeah, all right. We'll beg.
So,
I'm begging.
I don't do it that often, so
no, we don't. I don't think we're review like grubbing.
Yeah.
We're just
all
asking
right.
politely.
On to our guest.
All right.
We have someone who I've been following on social media for a while, and I really, really like their account. And one of the main reasons is because they're so close to us. So I can see some of the stuff they're talking about. So we have Andrew Comboy on today, and he is the Andrew behind the Andrew the Arborist on TikTok, Instagram. You on anything else, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Awesome. And it's all the same, right? It's all, Andrew _
Andrew.
the _ Arborist.
Yep. So exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Tom and Fran. I appreciate it. I'm excited to chat with you all, and yeah, honored to be here.
We're excited to get to know a little bit more about you. Like, we get to see what's on social media, and you get to hear what we do on the podcast. But it's not like we've ever had a chance to sit down and talk and get to know each other a little bit. So we're actually looking forward to that, and we're hoping our listeners enjoy that as well.
And before we really get into the meat of the conversation, there is a question I want to ask you first, and that's just because when I was looking some stuff about you earlier today, I found there's another Andrew the Arborist, and fittingly, you're based out of the Philadelphia area. He's based out of Pittsburgh. And I was wondering, is there like a rivalry between these? They almost, you look a little similar. At first I was fooled until I thought it was like, oh, it's the same guy. He just shaved.
I recently learned about the other Andrew the Arborist as well. He has a great website. I guess I just Googled Andrew the Arborist, and that was the first result. But yeah, no connection, I guess, and no rivalry or anything. Just I guess the same name. But
that sounds like a great podcast pitch. Andrew versus Andrew, the Arborist. Not like pit you head to head, but that would be a good show. All right, we can talk afterwards.
We're gonna build up. Yeah, we're gonna build this up for. We could do it as a trivia. That would be a good one. Yeah. All right. Who is the better arborist?
Oh, you can't do that.
He's got me beat.
But like I said, well, we love following your social media accounts, and I wanted to really ask you what inspired your love of nature. You can just tell you're really passionate in all your videos, that you really care about what you're talking about. So what started that passion?
Yeah, I guess it really started in middle school. I had a really interesting middle school, I think 6th grade science teacher, and he was really the first one who taught me about environmental issues and how humans are negatively impacting the environment in various ways. That was the first time I had learned about climate change and environmental degradation and habitat loss and things like that. And for some reason, it really stuck with me, and I became super interested in environmental issues throughout middle school and in high school as well. And I ended up majoring in environmental science in college. And I wasn't sure really where I wanted to take it afterwards, but I was doing some research in molecular biology in undergrad as well. And I decided to go to graduate school for molecular and evolutionary biology. So not really environmentally related, but I thought I had enough interest and passion for that. So that's the route I chose. But quickly into graduate school, I realized that wasn't the path for me. I was pursuing a PhD, but I ended up leaving after 2 years with a master's because I yearned to be back outdoors. I didn't like the isolating nature of graduate school and being a scientist and things like that. So I wanted to get back outside and do and really go after my passion for environmental issues. And I guess it was around that time, as I was getting ready to leave graduate school, and during that time is when I started volunteering a lot with local environmental organizations like Philadelphia Parks and Rec and Fairmount Park Conservancy. And I started learning how native plants and native trees can bring so many benefits to our ecosystem and to people, and how they combat all of these environmental issues at once. Things that I'm passionate about, like climate change and the biodiversity crisis, and they help reduce flooding and air pollution and all sorts of things. And it kind of just clicked for me at that point that native plants and native trees, this is my passion. This is what I want to do, and I want to help educate folks about the importance of these things.
Did you grow up in the Philadelphia area? Like, did you grow up here and stay here, or did you migrate here?
Yeah, I grew up in Plymouth Meeting, just maybe a half hour outside the city. And I've been here my whole life.
Is that Delco?
It's Montgomery County.
Okay, it's Monco. I was going to say, are you hiding the Delco accent? Or
Yeah, I don't know. I get that comment sometimes on my social media, like what accent do you have, or where are you from? I don't think it's a Philly accent, but I say strong, like SHT, like I add an SH in there, or strong, or string or something, and people are like, where does that come from? I don't really know, but I guess it's not a Delco or a Philly accent.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What do you, and of course I'm going off topic already, but what do you love most about the different type of ecotypes in this area? The Philadelphia area, very close to New Jersey and coastal plain and Piedmont. What is it that you love about this area, I should say?
Yeah, that's a good question. And unfortunately, my interest and passion for plants is relatively new. I guess within 5 years ago, I didn't really know much about plants or have any real interest in plants. So I'm still very new to this, and I'm still learning a lot. But I've been to the Pine Barrens, maybe twice total, and I went recently, maybe a month or so ago, and that was the first time that I went with any sort of appreciation for plants and trying to learn about the plants there. But yeah, it's certainly a rich area for plant diversity and ecotype diversity, and we're in a good spot. And Philadelphia has a rich history as well, with being a center for public gardens and the horticultural, I guess, industry in general. So we have all sorts of for better or for worse, I know a lot of plants, lots of invasives started here in Philly, or like we're ground zero for a lot of things. So it's all sorts of interesting plants. I guess I'm happy to learn about any plant in the area. I like traveling to different regions and learning just the plants and the diversity around.
Is there another part of the country that's a favorite of yours that you visited?
Yeah, I haven't traveled too much, unfortunately, but my uncle, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, moved out to Palm Springs. He retired out there in California. So I've been there twice and really just love, it's like completely different, obviously, much drier and hotter. And but the diversity of plants there kind of blew my mind the first time I was there. It was like super hot. It was dry. They get rain like, very, very little throughout the year, but things still flower beautifully. It's still an incredible place. So I guess the Southwest, the very little small region that I explored there, I thought it was really cool.
I have an infinity for the Pacific Northwest. There's something about that area that you just get a coloration. Like everything just seems so lush that you don't get, like the colors seem more vibrant. And for someone that's being colorblind, that was say, like when you get there, I was like, wow, like I don't think the yellows are that yellow back home. Like it's kind of weird. Yeah. I was just curious about that. But Philadelphia definitely has a rich history. If you think of John Bartram and Bartram Gardens and the Philadelphia Flower Show and all that, that great history.
And you mentioned all the public gardens a little bit as well. And that's just something I'll hit on while we're talking about it. Was I forget how many are in the Philadelphia area. When you go like up to just north of Princeton, do they count Bowman's Hill in that as well?
I don't know.
It's
a good question.
But like Mount Cuba Center, Longwood Gardens, Stoneleigh,
Winterthur,
Chanticleer, and what's it, Morris Arboretum counts in that whole thing. There's a whole bunch.
Ambler Arboretum, all those.
Yeah, and we're leaving probably 2 times as many as we said out. There's just so many that are all right in this region, and there's people all over the world will come to this region for that. At least the people who are interested in plants, but it's often overlooked by the everyday folks that don't know that they're all here. So
totally, yeah. I guess growing up here, and I take it for granted. There's so many cool places around here, and I don't know if you're familiar. They have a little passport book now with all the different places to visit. So they give you like 30 or 40 gardens and arboreta in the area to visit. So you can stay busy visiting all of those.
That's a great point. A bunch of our listeners have actually mentioned after a few of our episodes talking about Mount Cuba, they were going to make a week trip out here with garden friends. That's a fantastic point to bring up, that you get that passport and visit as many, make the most of it if you're coming here. Besides all the great breweries and wineries and all that, you can see some plants.
So now, Andrew, are you a formally trained arborist as well?
Yeah, so I'm an ISA certified arborist, but I don't do any chainsaw work. I don't do any actual tree removal, or I guess on a large scale I do smaller stuff, but I don't do any climbing. And most of my work so far has been as a consulting arborist. So most recently I worked at the Morris Arboretum, where I was a urban forestry fellow for a year. And that ended in March. But that just involved working with a variety of clients throughout the whole area, really, but a lot of clients in Philadelphia, working to preserve trees during construction or to guide restoration and replanting, to assess tree health and structural integrity for homeowners, or really just address any tree-related issues or tree questions for anyone who had them in the Philadelphia area. So that was a super unique opportunity to not only learn how trees intersect with all these different jobs and different things, especially in an urban area where space is so limited, but to also see how each of these different clients viewed and valued trees and nature differently. Like some construction folks just viewed trees as like, cut it down, it's in our way, get it out of here, we're trying to put this building here. But working with them over time, you can kind of see them learning the value and why we're protecting this tree. You know, it's a 60, 70-year-old tree. It's not replaceable by planting a couple 2 or 3 inch caliper trees. You know, these things are valuable assets to our community, especially in urban areas. So it was a really interesting position, but I guess, I definitely lack experience with the, you know, when people think of an arborist, they think of someone who can do work on trees and use a chainsaw and stuff like that. I haven't done much of that at all.
Yeah, I definitely, sometimes an arborist can just be an advocate, and that's so many trees and natural spaces don't have that, or an educator for that matter, to explain why it's important. Would you say your interaction with the public, or in those types of situations, would you say that the average person is more aware of these things than what you would expect, or is it a lot more educating and teaching the value of these things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think usually the folks who would hire us and call us out as urban forestry consultants or arboricultural consultants, I think, you know, are usually the ones who are more interested in preserving their trees in the first place. So, you know, a lot of people, unfortunately, and I see this in my neighborhood all the time, or my areas, people just, you know, they move into the house, they got a big tree next to their house, and they're just inherently afraid of it because it's a big oak tree. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of cut it down without calling an arborist. You know, they just call a tree crew to come in and give them a couple $1,000s to cut it down. But it's always good. It's always good when people are, you know, will call us out and get a good, unbiased assessment of the tree's health and structural integrity, and if there are any concerns about the tree before they move forward with removal or pruning or whatever. Because if most of the time these trees are perfectly healthy, or maybe there's, you know, a little bit of dead wood in there that you can have pruned out, and maybe you can cable this big branch to that big branch, but you don't have to take the whole tree down. I think we like trying to educate as much as we can and try to get the word out that there are, if you have tree related issues, call an arborist and get an arborist involved. And with public projects too, especially related to construction, like get an arborist involved early in the process if you want to keep if you want to preserve these trees and allow them to grow for decades in the future. It's always a good idea to get an arborist involved if you can.
Mm-hmm. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he gave a training at one of our New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association meetings. And they actually it was a joint meeting with the ISA arborists in New Jersey. And he kind of had a similar sentiment. And he basically said, oh yeah, if you have that tree, you could hire a tree service and they're going to come and they can cut down branches and do all this stuff. But that's not always what needs to be done, and sometimes can be more damaging. Where if you bring in an arborist, they may say, oh, you're having these issues because of X, Y, or Z. You haven't mulched around the base the right way, or you have weed whacker damage or something like that. Or if you're going to take down limbs, you can't just take them down off of one side. You have to have it balanced, or you're actually causing more or losing structural integrity. So I never thought about it that way until he kind of put it in perspective like that. But there's a lot of things with trees that we kind of take I don't want to say for granted, but as normal, like with tree care, and it's not as simple as that. And you have a lot of trained professionals that can give that advice. We should use them. So.
I agree, because I wouldn't never have thought of half of the things you just mentioned as far as balancing out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a really cool thing. He was like, well, yeah, if you're walking on a balance beam, you're holding your arms out. I'm doing this while we're talking. You're holding your arms out, and you're like, that helps you balance. It's the same thing with trees. If you were to take one arm off, you're not balanced anymore, and like having one arm is going to make you fall one way or the other. So it was he was saying, you can't just take down the branches off of one side. You have to kind of take some from all over, and a lot of it's from the wind. And it's because it's not just left, or your balance left and right and forward and backward. It's like every direction. And
well, if
you have wind blowing, it's like a lever, and you need something that's going to like put other pressure in different directions.
If I'm correct, like say you have a horizontal branch coming off a tree, it actually builds more like stronger wood on top to like on the upside and the downside.
I wasn't paying that good attention, friend.
I think it's on the underside.
Oh, the underside. Okay.
So I think like if you were to cut a branch off and look at the rings, I think they would be thicker on the underside.
Okay.
To build up. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool, I think it's like compression versus tension wood and how they grow differently. I don't know too much about it, but yeah.
It's the heartwood wouldn't be exactly in the middle, like as you would think. It's not like you cut it open and it's in the middle, but that's I didn't know which was which, but I knew that.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking as a
layman.
Yeah.
That's what they call you.
I don't even know if I'd call me that.
Yeah, now I'm second guessing. I don't know. I forget which side it's on too. So.
Well, you could make a video about it, which is a good segue into like. So you had all this your formal education and then your career. How did the social media channels come about, and where did they pop up along your path?
Yeah, so I guess my interest in video making started in middle school as well. I used to play a lot of video games growing up in middle school and throughout high school and even in college a little bit. And I started a YouTube channel back then where I uploaded gaming videos. I recorded myself playing video games and then I would talk over them and upload them to YouTube. And
can we still find those? Are they still out there somewhere?
Yeah, they're still up there. And I actually, I don't play as many video games as I used to, but I still occasionally upload video game content there. But yeah, it was I built up a decent following for the time, and I fell in love with making videos and sharing content with people and interacting in the comments and making friends online and stuff like that. So I guess as I started gaming less and my responsibilities, increased as I went through college and stuff, I just shifted. I wanted to keep making videos, but I guess I just shifted it over to my current interests, which were trees and plants. And I think I first started making TikToks about science education. So I guess when I was still in graduate school or coming close to the end, I started, just making videos about scientific discoveries and things like that. But eventually I found my niche in tree and native plants, and still kind of finding my niche as I go. But yeah,
I think there's a lot of followers that think you have found your niche.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm like, sometimes I guess I've heard that you want to stick to one specific thing, like make tree content only, but sometimes I like to vary it and make some stuff about native plants in the garden and some about urban forestry and all sorts of different things. But yeah, I guess it's all in the plant umbrella, I guess.
If you only stuck to one thing, I would imagine, and I don't know if it feels like this to you at all, and I'm getting ahead and we'll go back, but if you're not getting to do all the things that interest you, I would imagine at some point it feels like a job, where it's just like, I got to do this one again. I'd really like to do this, but I have to do another tree video.
Yeah, I think that's important as a content creator, is to just make what makes you excited to create, like create the videos that you want to create. And sometimes I want to, I create stuff knowing that it won't do as well as maybe some other contents or topics, but it makes me happy. I like sharing this with, and even if it only reaches, a couple people or impacts a couple people, I think it's important to create the stuff that makes you happy too, and try different topics or different areas.
What was there a specific video that kicked it off for you, or really like started like a big change in the amount of followers or interaction?
Yeah, I think my first video that did well, I guess, with the wildlife and ecological content was a really rare goose actually ended up in Philadelphia. We're not sure how it got over here, but it was a tundra bean goose, it was called. And I think it's only been sighted in the U.S., in the eastern U.S., maybe like 5 or 10 times before. But people were flying in all over the country, all over the East Coast, flying into Philly to see this bird. And it was right in Fairmount Park in Philly. So I went out and took a drive, and this was still during COVID. So, no one on the road really. And I went out and made a video of me trying to find the goose. And we found the goose, and then I met up with some other birders who were there looking for the goose, and they were like, yeah, this really rare West Coast hummingbird is like in this neighborhood, like 15 minutes away. So I went with them, and we found the hummingbird too. So that video, I think, was the first one that I got a good amount of followers from, and I guess started my path towards ecological and plant content.
After the first video blows up, do you feel pressure? Is it like, oh, how do I follow that up? Or did you not even think about that and just say, all right, on to the next thing that I love?
Yeah. I don't think I felt too much pressure. I think it was interesting to think about why that video performed well, and if I could replicate it in the future. But it was good to see that people were interested, and I guess it helped shape some of the content in the future. But I don't think I really felt or feel pressure after a video does well. I always try to learn from it and try to see why it did well, and maybe how I can bring aspects of this video into future videos so that people enjoy it more, or it reaches more people.
Do you prefer one social media over another? Like, considering where you're at, do you feel like you're reaching different audiences on each one, or is there one that you prefer over another for how you can distribute your content?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I have a favorite platform necessarily, but I know it's certainly not Facebook. I feel like Facebook is so hard to their user platform is so hard to like find comments and to communicate with people, which I think is like the best part of creating content, is interacting with folks through messages or through comments. And I'm not sure why, but their user interface is pretty bad on there. But I think, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, it's all fun to share to and easy to communicate with people. And I think my audiences differ slightly based on, I guess, the algorithm, as the algorithm differs slightly on the platforms. But I noticed, like, on Facebook, I think like 2/3 of my followers are women, whereas like on TikTok and Instagram, I think it's closer to 50-50. So it's interesting how that happens, and I'm not really sure why, but it's interesting.
I don't know that anyone knows why. It's when it comes to Tom and I talk about algorithms all the time, and we just look at each other and go, I don't know. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How much time would you say when you're going to do a video? And I would imagine it varies. That something you may see something right off the top of your head. But how much time would you do you think you spend on each video before it comes out and everyone sees it?
Yeah, I think it's probably, it does vary. I try to edit all of my videos and record audio separately, and record B-roll and throw it over top and stuff like that. But I would say maybe no more than 4 to 5 hours usually per video.
All right.
And that involves sometimes scripting, writing a script and then recording the audio, and then usually finding clips to match up with the audio and things like that. But sometimes it takes a little longer or a little shorter based on what I'm making.
Yeah, that's a pretty large time investment.
Yeah.
Where do you find the time to put out as much content as you do?
Yeah, I definitely, it's been like an internal battle in my mind, I guess. If I should, I guess I prefer to edit these videos and like until I'm happy with them and things like that. But I also want to be more consistent with more regular uploads, and I can't really balance the two right now. So I'm like, sometimes maybe I need to sacrifice quality for quantity, and sometimes I'm like, well, no, I'm okay with, you know, putting out one video a week or whatever. But yeah, I guess, you know, right now I'm not working an official job, I guess, trying to make the social media work full time. And, you know, I'm doing some consulting on the side, but there's nothing like, you know, I don't have a 9 to 5, I guess.
Yeah.
So there is more time now for me to focus on trying to do this and do better videos and try to get better ideas to make this maybe into a full-time thing. But during, you know, when I was working, it definitely was harder to find some time. But I guess after work, I would try to, you know, do a little bit or work on the videos a little bit or write a script or think of some ideas. Because I guess it is sort of a creative escape in some way. It's really one of my only creative outlets, I guess, in my life. So.
My neurotic tendencies, I'd be afraid of running out of content. I'd be like, oh, that's like, you know, constantly just walking around and looking like, is this content? Is this content? But that's my anxiety and my neurosis.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I certainly feel overwhelmed sometimes, like when I, you know, have a lot of ideas, and then like even when I'm out there just hiking or traveling or whatever, I'm like, oh, that would make a good video. But then I start like, you know, start thinking about things and I'm not present. And sometimes I just want to be present and enjoy nature and not have to think about making a video about it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I've been there too. Not that we have nearly the same social media success, but it happened. I had that meeting in D.C. And I'm walking around the National Mall, and I'm like, I just talked about all these cherry trees and how they were dying from flooding and all this stuff. And I was like, I should make a video about this. But I am also walking around with my family, and there's people all over the place, and I don't want to interrupt. And eventually I did. I found a quiet spot. I'm like, Melissa, give me 5 minutes, and I'm going to make this real quick. But yeah, no, it can be difficult when you're trying to think of things so you can have regular posts, and you find that thing, and it's like, but I'm just trying to enjoy my Saturday. I really don't want to do this right now, but I should do it because there becomes like a funny line that you're constantly walking. It seems like.
Yeah, totally. It's you know, I enjoy content making and getting clips. But there's a time where, you know, it's important to be able to turn it off. And sometimes I struggle with that.
And it's even just, I would imagine it's finding your voice. You know, when you look at like someone like Kyle Leibarger, where it's a little more in your face, like he's not in your face, but it's a little more like you need to do this. There's an urgency to it. These are important. This is what it is. And it's finding your own, and that's not for everyone, you know, but the content's great. And I'm not saying anything bad about Kyle, just saying that's one example. But it's, there's definitely different voices, and I'm sure it takes a little bit to find your point of view that you want to express.
Yeah, that's a good example to bring up. Like with Kyle, his videos are, you know, they're so, like you said, to the point, and, you know, he makes more regular content. I guess he doesn't do as much of the post editing, but he's gotten really good at, you know, just thinking of a topic, you know, almost daily he uploads, sometimes multiple times a day. And, you know, each with a different unique topic. It's really impressive how he can do, you know, that type of content and put it out so regularly.
It makes you wonder if he does shut his brain off, you know, for some of that stuff.
What's one of the funniest things about Kyle to me, getting to know him now a couple times and having him on here a couple times, is he is just such a like quiet guy, and you would not think that from his videos at all. He's like yelling about, "Do you see this rare plant? We need to save this, and these people are trying to kill." He's like yelling at you on the phone, and then you get him in the room, and he's so quiet. Even on our podcast, he's just very quiet's the right word, and it's such a. But when I've only seen it like once or twice, But what I've heard is when you get him out in those things where he is really excited, that is who he really is. He is like yelling and he's like super pumped about stuff. That's his business partner Jake tells me that all the time. But that's one of the things I just having you on right now is your voice here is very similar to how you present yourself on your videos. And I've always learned a ton from them. And because there's so much just good information that's in them, and they're very succinct and to the point, but they also just like what am I trying to say here? Get in depth enough to keep you like make you want to look up more of this stuff. And there's been numerous videos I've watched where I'm like, wait, I didn't know that, and I'll look it up and I'm like, how didn't I know this? This seems like I should have known it. How much of that knowledge that you're putting out in the videos is stuff you already knew, is stuff that you researched because you saw something cool and you're like, oh, I want to look more into this? And then how much of that do you retain going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a good mix of, I guess, prior knowledge, and I definitely do a good amount of research, making sure everything is correct and consistent with, I guess, the science or whatever it is. Before I make the video, but a lot of like my previous videos that I've done well over the last year or so, it was, work that I've done at the Morris Arboretum on the job. And I was working with a board certified master arborist who has been doing this type of work for a few decades now. So like any question I had, I could just ask him and he had an answer for it. So I learned so much from him over the last year, and he really cool, like, interesting guy, just knows all these odd little facts, and I would always write them down or look them up later, and I was like, oh well, that would make for a cool video. Or but yeah, having someone like that, working with someone like that was really good for learning. But yeah, I certainly do a lot of research on my own, or when I'm reading something that I think would be interesting, I can I'll write it down and then research it a little bit later. But I guess most of my content starts from something that I know and then research it a little further. And then I think most of it I retain later. I'm not sure, how, the Latin names of these fungi and stuff that I make. But yeah, I think it's... Yeah.
You do have to watch out asking those older guys about plant questions, because every once in a while they're going to try and convince you that the New England aster is from Korea.
All right, I deserve that. It was purple. It was purple, though. Yeah. It was what I heard. It was. I didn't question it. I should have done my research. You mentioned a few people that have inspired you along the way, like a middle school teacher and like this other arborist. Is there someone you really look up to, or someone that's an inspiration for you to continue to do what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, just seeing the work that other content creators in this environmental space are doing, I think like it's always inspirational for me to see them making a difference in their community, or educating folks in their area about plants in their area, or restoration practices. And, Kyle's one of them, makes such cool content, and it's big, I think a big inspiration for most folks in this space. But yeah, I think just trying to be educational and consistent with my content, and yeah, I think just trying to find inspiration where I can.
Have you gotten to collaborate with any other content creators? Like, I just recently saw a video with Alexis Nicole with Sam Thayer, and I'm like, oh, I would love to be there right now with what with what they're doing.
I know, I'm always a little jealous. I'm like, I want to be there. I don't think I haven't collaborated in person really with any other content creators in the environmental space, but I definitely hope to in the future do some traveling maybe and meet up with other folks, and yeah, that would be cool.
We would love that. Maybe we can do a rooted discussion with content creators.
Well, and that was actually my original, when I reached out to Andrew the first time, which was probably a month or two ago, maybe even longer. Sometimes I'll reach out to people and ask them, and then I'll be like, okay, they're in. Now I just got to put the rest of the team together. And it's like months go by.
That's hard to do sometimes.
Or years have gone by with some folks. But my original idea was, hey, let's get a bunch of different people who have found success talking about native plants on social media, get them together and compare success stories, what they found that works, and see if there's common threads that come out. Namely for people at home who want to convince their family and their friends and their neighbors to start doing some stuff with native plants, so they can kind of craft their message and either put it on social media or even just doing it at a backyard barbecue. They could kind of take some inspiration from some of these people that they are following on social media and how to do it, and make something that's impactful for their own circle. And but then I was struggling to get all that to come together, and then we needed a guest. So I'm like, Andrew, why don't you come on now? Because you have some other really cool stuff coming up or going on that we want to talk about as well.
Stay tuned for more of the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Welcome back to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
So,
you
go.
Sorry. Yeah, before you go on, I think that would be an awesome idea if you get that going in the future or whatever. That would be cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we definitely have plans to, and I always hate going to Kyle Native Plant Talk too much because he's already been on
twice.
Three times, because I was at the conference where we talked to him too.
That's right.
You weren't on that episode, Fran, so you forgot.
That's right.
That's right. But yeah, there's some other folks that I've reached out to. That's one of the things. I'll give credit to you, Andrew, is that a lot of the folks, when you reach out to them in social media and they have that 50,000, 60,000, 100,000, multiple thousands of followers, they're getting so many messages in a day that it's easy to miss some. And you're someone who I've reached out to, and there's a lot of people I've reached out to. I've never heard anything back. You're someone I reached out to and I heard back almost immediately. And so that's a lot. And I think one of the things I've seen with you is you don't just post, you're also interacting with a lot of the other people in this space too. And why do you like to do that as much as you do?
Yeah, I think it's important to encourage other content creators to keep going. I mean, at least speaking for what I feel, I often feel a lot of anxiety and, eco anxiety about all the, there's no shortage of bad news in the environmental area. So whenever I see folks doing something good, growing whole lots of native plants like you guys do, or restoring a little park in their area or whatever, cutting invasive vines or planting native trees, it makes me happy to see that, people across the country and the world are doing it. And I also try to just give them some positive, encouragement and some positive words. But I think also answering messages and trying to interact with folks is what social media is all about. And I think it's probably my favorite part of social media. If I uploaded videos and they get millions of views but no comments, then I don't know. I prefer lots of comments and talking with people, and I try to answer as many questions as I can. And I've been able to help a lot of folks who have tree questions. They send me messages on Instagram and TikTok, and just being able to help them, I think is cool. Help them from a distance.
One of the things I appreciate about the podcast, and I don't know if either of us knew we would have appreciated it as much as we do, is that when we started the Facebook community group, I mean, Tom and I both made friends from that. We have listeners that are now friends, and we have former guests that are now friends that we communicate with. We just had ones we were able to. They were in the area and we were able to schedule and give them a tour of the nursery and just be able to spend time and get to know them and meet their family or exchange things. It really changes the whole aspect of why you're doing it and how you do it. It just makes it a little more personal feel. It's almost like family.
Yeah.
And it's I'm happy that we get a chance to interact with as many people as we do, and it's nice to see you interacting that way as well. Because I think it's important. It's not just you're not just doing it for the followers, and I think that's how it changes how it gets viewed a little bit.
Yeah, and adding on to that, Fran, is about the group. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that or say this is you're seeing listeners who are getting to be friends with other listeners who live states away from each other, and I don't know. I'm really that's very impactful to me to see that was something we had a hand in creating. So sorry to cut you off.
No, yeah, that's a good point. And we always hear about the negatives of social media and how it's changing how we interact and stuff. But this is certainly a really good positive aspect. Like I have friends kind of all scattered all over the country now, and if I ever travel to those areas, I'm certain they would be happy if I reached out and met up with them. And that's all from social media.
Yeah. Has there been a negative aspect to it for you? We talk. It's not very much for us, but when it occurs, I'd be lying if I said it in some way it doesn't affect me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say there are certainly some downsides, and it's something that I'm working on. But it's very common. It's just scrolling endlessly. Spending hours on your phone some days, and I've been getting a little bit better at catching myself and just putting the phone down and going outside and doing something. But some days it's like, I'm on there for hours. And I've also noticed, especially on TikTok, like my attention span has just gotten so bad. It's like, if I'm not interested in the first couple seconds of the video, I'm like out of there. And I'm like, what's happened? What's like happening to me? I should be, and I think it's also translating into like when I'm reading a book, I'm like finding myself like skipping the words or like, going to the next paragraph. I'm like, I need to relearn how to like slow down and calm down and just enjoy the book and read it through. And I think that's stems from TikTok and just having an endless feed of videos of just all different topics and all different emotions like hitting you all at once.
Have you gotten to do any public speaking for this? Like, have you been asked to speak in public and had a live audience?
I did speak recently at the Philly Botanical Club, but that was just, on Zoom with maybe 30 or 40 folks. But I haven't really spoke other than podcasts about my social media or anything like that. Yeah.
Tom and I got to do one, and it really was such a nice. We did one live podcast where we got to see a lot of the listeners, and it was nice. We were just invited to do another one, which I'm really looking forward to. It changes the aspect when you see people face it. Well, we've done one live talk too, and it was weird actually having a conversation in front of people and making them feel a part of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Interesting.
Is there for you in all of your post creation, is there one post that was like a darling of yours or a favorite that didn't perform as well as maybe you had hoped, that you wish you had back again, that you could give it another shot?
I don't think there is. There's certainly videos that I thought would perform better than they did, and maybe one of the things I try to do is to try and, before I upload, predict how the video will do, and then assess where it, how it does relative to where I thought how it would perform. And then, sometimes if they underperform, I try to figure out why. Maybe my intro wasn't strong enough and I didn't grab people's attention. I'm thinking of my short attention span. Maybe I didn't interest people in the first few seconds. So maybe, I could, and that's the thing too. You can always like take the video down and re-edit it or retry it and upload it in a new form. But yeah, I guess one of my favorite posts, and it did perform, I think, pretty well, was towards the end of my position at Morris Arboretum, we were hired to look at a really giant white oak that was near, it was on someone's property, and it had some decay issues at the base. And we used a resistance drill, which is like a tiny tool that drills into the tree and measures the internal decay and the extent of the cavity in the inside. And it ultimately helps us figure out if we can retain the tree, if the tree has enough strength left to hold itself up, or if it's too weak, then we have to recommend removal or whatever. But in this video, we used the drill, which people always are interested in learning about because they never really knew tools like this exist for assessing trees. But also I showed the math a little bit behind it. And there's a couple tree research institutions that look into this stuff, equations for figuring out loss of structural strength in a tree. And so I included some of the math up on the screen, which people liked seeing, and showed them how we arrived at our answer that ultimately this tree sadly had to be taken down because it was just too hollow in the middle. And then to wrap the video up, we showed what we hypothesized to be the origin of the wound that caused all this decay was that they built a parking lot about 10 feet from the base of the tree. And this is like a huge, like 60-inch white oak. And we think that, cutting all those roots when they went to build that parking lot ultimately allowed decay to enter and go up the tree. So it had all different aspects of it, and it ended on the importance of protecting trees in construction. And I think that video touched on a lot of different topics and shows something that happens a lot more commonly in urban areas than we may think is like, doing construction right near an unprotected tree and then having issues show up 10, 20 or 30 years down the line that leads to the tree's removal.
I don't think I saw it. Now I'm writing notes so I make sure I go back and find that one.
Yeah.
I need to see that one.
So now the social media stuff isn't all you do. You also have a nonprofit that you started?
Yeah, I started in 2020. And that stemmed, I guess, from, during graduate school, I was growing a bunch of native trees in little nursery pots. And these trees had just popped up in my backyard, like, a tulip tree for my neighbors, big tulip tree, or like a little maple. So I pot them up, and eventually I amassed a large enough collection that I had to start planting them or getting rid of them. So I started asking around, asking people on Facebook if they wanted a tree, and started planting them around my area. And then I just kind of had an idea, like, what if a couple people did this, or, grew up trees a little bit and planted them, restored native trees in the area. And so I just went for it and started a little group on Facebook called Colonial Canopy Trees. And it's called that because we mainly do our planting and restoration work in the Colonial School District area. So I lack creativity with the name there, but we just kind of got the ball rolling a little bit, and I met someone who was doing something similar. So we teamed up, and we started reaching out to municipalities and asking, can we plant this tree in this park? And we started working, and the ball just kept kind of rolling. And eventually now, 3 years later after we started it, became a 501c3, and we can take donations from folks in the area, and we do maybe 25 or 30 volunteer events throughout the year to engage the public and educate and sometimes provide plants. And it's been a lot more successful than I ever really thought or envisioned.
I love the idea of that. That's just, you know what? I'm going to have to come out and volunteer on that one. I would love to be a part of that. If you'll have us.
Well, I was going to say we should probably donate some plants.
I was thinking the same thing, yeah. Well, we can bring the plants and then help
that's
plant.
the ticket.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually if we would be able to buy from you for some of our projects, because we could certainly, you guys have such a good collection, or growing such a diverse stock of plants. And we started originally with trees, and I've noticed this as I've learned more, especially over the last year or two, in the Philadelphia area where I was volunteering and learning all this stuff, most of the efforts of environmental conservation groups here focus on tree planting, native tree planting, rebuilding the canopy, and adding trees to urban areas. And just, it's mostly all about tree canopy. But, I've quickly learned that in different parts of the country, tree planting isn't always good. And, you may, in the Southeast where grasslands are historically more prevalent, you may want to cut down some trees to help restore. So our mission has kind of evolved a little bit. We still mainly focus on native tree planting because our area here is it's so developed and built out. There's pretty much no land, open space left except the ones that are preserved already or are parks. So we still try to focus on planting native trees and rebuilding that, but we've certainly have, started going towards, gardening or herbaceous plants and shrubs when we can, if the deer pressure isn't too high. So we started focusing on other native plants and seeing their value as well.
Awesome. We'll talk more about this off the air because I have a good opportunity that I think would work for you on that.
Awesome.
I'm excited to talk to you about that. But if our listeners are in the area and they would like to get involved with the colonial canopy trees, how can someone get involved or find out about volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, I'd say the best way is to sign up for our mailing list on our website homepage at the bottom. And we usually do our events mainly in the spring and the fall, but we do some events in the winter, cutting invasive vines and removing invasive plants and stuff in the winter. We don't do too much during the summer right now just because it's super hot and a lot of our efforts are spent on watering the recently planted trees and making sure that they're happy and established. Luckily, we've had a good amount of rain this year. I'm hoping that keeps up. But yeah, our volunteer events will be on our website, and we'd love to have you all out for a volunteer event. Usually they last 2 hours or so, and we usually plant some trees and or remove some invasives and talk about the plants and why they're important and why this is the right spot for this tree. It's the right soil and moisture. And we try to provide as much education during the events as we can. And we've made a good dent in some of the parks and different areas in our little region.
I'm just thinking about it. You have this nonprofit. You're an arborist. You have the master's degree. You have the social media following. How do you view yourself? Do you consider yourself an educator? How do you identify with all this duality? It's all in the same thing. I shouldn't say duality. It's you're involved in a lot. How do you identify?
That's a good question that I'm not sure I figured out myself. I'm not really sure where I stand right now or where I want to go. If I want to, I think I want to try to make this social media, start making a significant or, just enough money to make a living wage from this. Mm-hmm. And then kind of, I've also thought about trying to do my nonprofit full time or getting some grants that will provide funding. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I do really, I guess when people ask what I do, I say I'm an urban forester. I do all sorts of tree things around the Philly area, and that's pretty much all I respond with. But I hope to just keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll resolve itself.
The answer may be a combination of them all, because in a way they all serve each other. I'm sure having the social media presence helps guide people towards a nonprofit and help work on that. It may just be that you're the sum of all parts.
Yeah, it's been a fun and interesting journey, and I'm just excited to continue and see where it goes. Sometimes I guess I feel a little overwhelmed or uncertain or anxious about, what I'm doing, or, if I should try to get like a regular 9 to 5 and put these things on the back burner. But I think it's all part of the process, and I guess I'll just figure it out.
I'm glad, I'm glad you're able to focus on this because of how important this aspect is, because and Tom and I see it like from the time that we started the podcast to now, there's been a growing awareness as far as our ecosystems and native plants and their importance. So the work that you're doing, educating people in that manner, is so helpful, because if it changes one mind, if it changes two minds, and they change someone's mind, or they plant one native plant and their friend plants one native plant, what a difference it makes. And the less, it actually warms my heart seeing how many people are in the space and all doing well. So I'd hate to see you have that take a back seat. No pressure. I'm not saying it.
No, I totally agree. It's great to hear, like, I hear from some of my older viewers that, like, in horticulture 20, 30 years ago, they said it wasn't really common to focus on native plants, or you didn't have as much of an emphasis on native plants as you do today. And I love hearing that, younger folks are just, older gardeners too, are just getting into native plants and restoring what was here. It's great to hear.
I think in my history in the industry, so going back to the late...
It's a long history, Fran.
Not, but just like in the late 80s, like when I first started, there were more native plants available because there were less cultivars. And even though patents were a business, it wasn't as big of a business back then. Like there were cultivars, but not like... They've grown exponentially in the last 30 years, the amount of cultivars out there. So I remember in the late 80s, finding coralberry or things that you can't find today. There were more native plants available because the plant palette was not as big. There's a lot more choices. It's become a lot bigger industry for patents on cultivars. It's a big industry. Tom keeps saying if I end up whacked, it's either going to be the cultivars or honey.
Cultivars, honey, or the folks from Connor Pyle want you to stop talking about them. One of the three.
Yeah, but it's I think it's time that focus gets put back on that and knows what it's done over the last 30 years, because I'm sure that the damage has been exponential over the last 30 years, probably more so than the 100 years prior to that. So
where do you kind of see that heading in the future? Do you think the cultivar creation will continue to explode, or do you think...
I do, because there's so much money behind it. If with the amount of money and income it generates, they have the money to create the narrative. And I think that's what's, we've often talked about, that's the mosquito spray. That's the other one. When how many times have you gotten a flyer in the mailbox for spraying for mosquitoes, or billboards or things like that? Because there's money there and they get to create the narrative. So it's important for people with a voice to kind of explain that maybe that narrative is driven by money, not necessarily what's best for the ecosystem. It may be what you think might be best for you, but not necessarily what's best for everyone. And there's just so much money behind that until people start asking the right questions or start making a difference in their purchasing. I'm hopeful. I'm sure we're making a small little dent, but we need to make a bigger dent in that. And education is how you do it. You're a huge part of that. And that's why it would be a shame to see you maybe not post as often or put it on a back border. Because I'm sure that doing what you do is create opportunities for you. And who knows what other future opportunities that will present to you in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I've never thought of, that. I guess I didn't know that they're so much more prevalent now than they've ever been.
At least in my experience. Now, when I worked at Princeton, we had records going all the way back to the early 1900s. So you would see records from the 50s. And yeah, there were non-natives in there, but the natives weren't cultivars. They were just, they might be selections, Princeton elm was a selection from the 1920s. So it's there, which is a seedling variation, but that's really been a business I saw really in the late 80s, early 90s where, we can make a lot of money off these patents. Like if we can create a new plant and we have the patent on it, we can get X amount of money. You do the marketing, you get people to think they want it. Like how many people do you think have bought knockout roses or what's the hydrangea, the blue hydrangea?
Endless Summer.
You think of, I know those, but I've never planted one, but I know those by names just from the marketing. If any gardening magazine you pick up, you see a picture. I've seen commercials, I've seen billboards.
Yeah, and I was actually at a presentation from the folks who behind Endless Summer, and I always feel bad about this because I'm friends with these people, and we have a differing viewpoint, and I think I'm more enlightened than they are. But no, all kidding aside, they're basically pitching. Like Endless Summer hydrangeas, they're actually pitching it as like a lifestyle brand now. Yeah. It's no longer as like a garden brand. Hey, if you're a gardener, you would want to plant this. Think of those trips like summer vacations, Cape Cod, and the beautiful hydrangeas, and it's part of the lifestyle is having the blue hydrangeas or purple hydrangeas. It's not that I want to garden with these. It's like they're almost treating them as what am I trying to say? As like a decoration themselves, like you would have the nice car in the driveway or the nice boat that they pulled up to the dock with. It's like, if you're going to have those things, you need this too. You can't just have any plant there. You need to have this hydrangea. Was the concept behind it, and they're saying that's the approach they're taking.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, they're putting in like what's it? Better Home and Garden magazine. They're putting it in not outdoor living, Southern Living, and those kind of magazines, pitching it as this is something you need for your life, not for your garden.
Or the Home and Garden Network.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying all intentions are evil. I don't think anyone set out to do this. I think, you look at one example I can think of is our blue hollies. Kathleen Meserve didn't set out to hybridize a blue holly because she wanted to make X amount of money off of patents. She was trying to create a better garden holly that people would have better success with. Like, people love English hollies, but they're not very hardy. If I cross it with this holly, maybe it will provide a better product for the home gardener that really likes this plant.
Yeah.
But then you see the amount of income that generated, and it's more than likely her offspring will never work again.
Yeah,
But,
and it's the same thing. Like Rutgers is creating, and I didn't know this. I didn't even put this together just because I'm so far removed from traditional horticulture. I'm also thinking as we're having this conversation, I'm so glad I'm seeing these people next week and not 2 weeks from now when this is going to end. They'll be shaking their fist at me after I see them, not before.
Oh, they're not listening.
Anyway. Yeah, no, they aren't listening to this anyway. But and now I lost that thought. What was I saying, Fran?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. It wasn't important. I'm just saying that so people don't feel like they missed out on something profound.
With all the content that you've created, is there a favorite story that you remember or a favorite plant story that always sticks in your head that you don't forget?
Yeah,
that you've learned maybe along the way.
I'm not sure about like a super interesting story that has come out of my content, but I guess recently I uploaded a video about how we got a free street tree in Philadelphia. There are a few programs that you can request a tree in Philadelphia and they'll come out and plant it for you. And I made a video about that process, and it was through the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. And
my wife shared that video with me, by the way, without knowing.
Oh, cool.
But yeah. So yeah. I had people actually saying, "Hey, do you know about this? Have you seen this?"
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Yeah, it did really well, and people were sharing it, just like you mentioned. And I heard, I know all the folks who work at the trees team at PHS, and they said they've gotten like a whole lot of requests, and there's like a wait list now. So it's really cool. Again, it shows the power of social media that you can make a video about this and now maybe, I don't know how many, 50 or 100 new trees are going to go in all over Philadelphia from people who maybe applied from seeing this video. So I think that's pretty cool. And I encourage them to request a native tree. So hopefully they listen and request and get more native trees in.
Awesome.
That's funny that your wife sent you one of his videos, because my wife just did it to me the other day. Did she? On Tuesday, I think it was just after I confirmed with you were going to come on, Andrew, and she sent me a video or one of your videos, and I was like, "Yeah, he's coming on the podcast later this week." So, yeah, she was very excited by that as well.
Yeah, I just thought it was, here it is. She that's
the same one.
She messaged it to me like 5 days ago.
Yeah. Mine came in on Tuesday at 10:11 a.m. So.
Thought you'd appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah. I guess recently, like I've been uploading my videos to Facebook and YouTube, and they haven't. If they've done well on Instagram and TikTok, they started. They didn't really do as well on YouTube or Facebook for whatever reason, but recently they started doing really well. So a lot of the older videos that I uploaded like a year and a half ago, I'm re-uploading to YouTube and Facebook, and they're getting views, which is good.
That's
well,
awesome.
I remember Kyle Leibarger saying it when TikTok took off for him. He's like, it wasn't like I just started doing it. Like he goes, I'd been doing that on Facebook for years, just no one cared.
Yeah.
He goes, but TikTok tended to be the outlet that made people care. So
yeah, it's interesting.
So one question I do want to ask is for people who, like I mentioned before, they want to convince their friends or their social media network to get more into native plants. What are some tips to say they wanted to make a video? What would be some tips you'd have for them to make like a good, convincing video?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is consistency. If you want to build a following or you want to build a little channel doing this, I think being consistent is most important. And this is something I think I've always struggled with, even when I did gaming videos, is trying to find like a schedule to stick to and being able to upload, one video a week or 2 videos a week, or sometimes I'll stick to it for a good amount of time, and then I'll just not upload for 2 weeks or something. But it's good to be consistent because then people will see your name regularly in their feed, and they'll come to expect content from you. And I guess, just as I mentioned earlier, I think like a hook and a good hook in the beginning of the video is super important for catching people's attention and keeping their attention on the video. But I think just the best way to learn is just creating content and just kind of figuring it out as you go. You'll learn more about how the algorithm works the more you create. And you can take, like, TikTok has TikTok University, and they have all sorts of classes that you can take to learn how to maybe get more traction on your videos and things like that. But I think the best teacher is just trying it yourself and creating and learning what works and what doesn't work, and maybe just building it from there as you go. But if you're interested, if you have a passion for, are interested in native plants, whether it's growing them or restoring them or just walking, hiking and pointing them out and teaching folks about them, I definitely encourage anyone and everyone to give it a try.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
All
definitely.
right.
Or if they want to take the shortcut, they can just repost your videos and share them. That's probably an easier way to do it as well. So,
I like that. That. So we always end. I'm just looking at time.
I do have one extra
All right,
question.
Then go ahead.
And it's really, I'm asking this question for Santino, who's former guest from Bowman's Hill, because I know this has been burning him up all episode now as he's listened, probably at like 6 a.m. He wakes up at some crazy hour, and gets a run in. He's probably really interested when you're making your gaming videos. What game were you playing?
Yeah, so this was interesting, I guess. So are you both aware of Call of Duty or familiar with?
Oh, yeah. I'm horrible at it.
So it was Call of Duty, but what made my channel unique was that I was uploading it on Nintendo consoles, which was almost unheard of, because most of the folks uploading Call of Duty were playing Xbox and PlayStation and PC, and nobody played Call of Duty on the Wii because it was, you know, the Wii wasn't a high definition console. It didn't have good, you know, crazy processing power. So the Call of Duty versions for the Wii were always super dumbed down, and the graphics looked like, you know, a calculator graphics or whatever. But people, I guess that was what made my channel unique, is that people who did play on the Wii, when they searched Call of Duty Wii, my channel was like the first one to come up. So yeah, I mostly uploaded Call of Duty on Nintendo consoles, and then eventually they stopped making Call of Duty for Nintendo because it just didn't sell well. And that's kind of when my channel, that's the downside of relying on one very tight niche. But yeah, that's what I uploaded.
That's awesome.
When I would play Call of Duty with my kids, I would have to turn off all the external chat, because I would just be getting laughed at the whole time. I was like, I'm like, I don't have to listen to this.
People are brutal.
Yeah. Or would you say that the people who would watch your Call of Duty videos, or you played Call of Duty with, were more brutal than your native plant followers?
Good question.
I mean, so sorry, could you I didn't hear you.
I was going to say, do you think the people who you would play Call of Duty with and that chat or watch your Call of Duty videos in the comments there, are they more brutal than the ones that are commenting on your native plant videos?
Oh, yeah.
The native plant videos can get a little testy too sometimes. So
yeah, it's kind of crazy and surprising sometimes how much negativity you can get from like such a good intentioned video. But yeah, I've certainly got a lot of, you know, it's been mostly positive across the board, and it's, you know, people are generally really nice to each other on TikTok. I find, at least in the comments, they're really, really nice and supportive. Instagram is pretty close to TikTok for that, but you'll get some haters. And then Facebook is just like a nightmare. I don't even bother reading Facebook comments, because it's like you get all sorts of people like, oh, I know better. You know, they did decades of research on this topic, but they're wrong. I dug up a tree once, and this is actually how the roots look. I know better. Like, you get all sorts of experts on Facebook.
I don't think I talked to Tom about this. I think it was it on Facebook that someone commented on your one video about Ilex verticillata? That was like,
I didn't see that one.
They were like, oh, this is obvious. Thank you. I learned nothing. You wasted my time. I was like, wow.
I would have left that. That's great.
I was like, wow, that's brutal. And it wasn't obvious. Like, it was unnecessary.
Yeah. The video I made was especially with seed grown plants. If you have male and female plants, people always want the females because they tend to have more showy flowers or berries or that kind of stuff. So it was Ilex verticillata, which is winterberry holly. And when you grow them from seed, you don't know if it's male or female really until it gets berries or starts producing flowers. Yeah. At least that's how I'd tell. But so if you don't want to wait for the berries, you can tell from the flowers, because the flowers almost look identical in the beginning. And then just as time goes on, I guess after the pollinated, the green center in the females will start getting a little bigger. And that's basically because the ovary and it becomes the berry. And yeah, I guess that I didn't even see that.
Oh, yeah, so, go back and look.
All right.
Or don't, you know what? Yeah, let it go.
It's like so unnecessary. And just like, why did you even bother commenting that? Like, some comments I get a lot are like, you know, on the consulting jobs are like, this is such a waste of taxpayer dollars, or, you know, even though there was no taxpayer dollars spent on hiring us, like, or, you know, when we use the resistance drill to probe the decay on the inside, they're like, well, I could have told you that tree's bad just by looking at it. Like, no, you can't see through the tree. You can't like see how big the hollow is inside. But yeah, there's lots of experts out there who always know better.
Yeah. You just have to. I've gained a thick skin, I should say, or at least I think I do. Maybe not. Tom hears me complain all the time.
All the time, yeah.
I've gotten better at who I complain to.
Yeah, I think if you're on social media, you have to learn how to deal with ignoring or fighting back, or, you know, just having fun with the trolls a little bit.
I agree. All right. I think we're looking at time. I think we're at the point where it's our last question. It's always the same question. It's very simple, but very complex at the same time. And that is, what is your favorite native plant?
Yeah, I think I have to go with my favorite tree, which is the white oak, Quercus alba. And I just think, in my area, you can't beat a mature, big, wide-spreading white oak. In terms of wildlife value, it's at the top of the list. It's beautiful, and I just, I love all the different galls you can find on the leaves, and I think, there's no better plant, in my opinion, in this area.
It's a great choice. It really is. It made, for all the things about it, so my property backs up to a natural area, and there's only one white oak in that natural area. It's wooded, but the amount of birds that frequent that because of the Lepidoptera for like when it's nesting time is unbelievable. The activity on that tree compared to all the other trees in the area, and it just makes you go, "Oh yeah, I knew that," but I'm seeing it like it's connecting a little bit more.
Yeah, right. That's powerful, and I'll just tell a quick story real quick. I gathered about a year and a half ago, not this spring, but the fall before, I gathered white oak acorns from a local, a tree in a wild area near me, and I'm growing 2 in my backyard from acorn. And the thing is, like, they're probably maybe, I don't know, 15 inches tall now, but there is a little, on one of the leaves, there's a gall already. So it's, it's already supporting a little bit of wildlife.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's what I love to hear. So after the last question, we always kind of end the same way, and we do a final thought. And this is something that Tom and I will participate in as well. So for a final thought, we hand the floor over to you, and you can use the time however you want. If you want to summarize, promote something, mention something that we didn't mention, this is the time to do it, and we hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It was fun to chat with you all. And I think we talked about a good number of topics, and what sticks in my mind is the power of social media can bring in terms of changing people's planting habits, or encouraging them to plant native and to do better in their own landscapes. I think that's pretty awesome and powerful. I think that's it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for coming on. Tom, do you want to go? You want me to go?
Yeah, I think it's just important to we have so many great native plant social media resources now, where you go back just a handful of years, there really wasn't, as far as I know, there wasn't a lot out there. And now it's, or
maybe they just weren't as popular.
Yeah, there's just so many, and it's really, really nice to see that. Like I said, I'm getting a message from my wife is saying, "Oh, I saw this," and I have other people in my lives who are even on the periphery of my life who are coming to me saying, "Hey, I saw this, and this kind of sounds like what you do," or even they're just sharing it. It's a friend from high school I haven't seen in 10 years, and they're sharing something from you or Kyle Leiberger, and I'm seeing this and being like, wow, people are getting this outside of the sphere of native plant nerds like we are. So it's just really important, one, to see that, and then two, get out and volunteer in your local areas this summer, this fall. It's a great opportunity to get out and bond with other people who are passionate about what you're passionate about, and give back a little bit to your community or a community that you're fond of. So, yeah.
Tom, mine is very similar to yours. It's nice to see the importance of passionate, positive voices for what we do, and the amount of people that are taking notice. And every time you get another follower, it's a win for everyone because of the message that you're spreading. I can't thank you enough for what you do, and it's for all of you that if you don't follow Andrew, follow him. If you follow him, take that information, don't just store it, apply it. Go out in the nature, volunteer, make a difference, plant something at your property, tell a friend, whatever you can do to make that circle larger, because the larger the circle gets, the better the work can be. So I appreciate it. Andrew, thank you so much. I mean, this has been wonderful. I appreciate all the time that he's taken, and and for all the content that you do. If we haven't thanked you, thank you.
Yeah, keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind.
No problem.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed listening to Andrew the Arborist. For more information, you can visit their nonprofit website, which is colonialcanopytrees.wordpress.com. And then all of the socials are at Andrew the Arborist, or at Andrew_the_arborist. Thank you, everyone, for listening to...
not those other imposters.
Yeah, not the
Andrew
one from
the
Pittsburgh. I'm sure he's a nice guy, too.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll reach out to him at some point.
That's the next native plant trivia.
Yeah.
There you go.
I wonder if maybe he's like how Elvis has the impersonators. Maybe he's an Andrew Conboy impersonator, and just in the Pittsburgh area. So watch him be a listener. That would be.
I guess we'll find out.
So
That'd be cool.
thank you, everyone, for listening to Native Plants Healthy Planet, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
Thank you to the Egocentric Plastic Men for contributing our intro music, and Dave Bennett and his Native Plant Anthem for our outro music. Make sure you stream or buy their music wherever you consume music. You can follow us at Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at nativplants_healthy planet, or at Pinelands Nursery, and also YouTube at Pinelands Nursery. Don't forget about the question and comment line. We've had a few calls in just in the last week. You can call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat that, 215-346-6189. Ask a question or leave a comment. We'll do our best to play it on a future episode of The Buzz. And thank you to all the new members of the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group that just keeps growing exponentially at this point. We appreciate all the new faces and voices. Yeah, so you can buy Native Plants Healthy Planet merch at our website, www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com. I still think I said 4 W's there, but I don't know. So there's a link at the top, takes you to our Teespring store, and we have all kinds of designs up there that can show off your, in a fashionable sense, your love for native plants and the environment. So, and we don't keep any of that money. It all goes to the people who make the T-shirts, one, and then we could keep a little bit, but we choose not to. We go and give it to organizations that we think are doing a really, really good job with native plants. And as we said on our last buzz, which would have been 3 weeks ago? Something like that.
In that realm. We are coming up on our next donation amount. So we're at a lump sum that we feel is good enough to give out to somebody. So that's going to be coming up on our next Buzz episode, which will be 2 weeks from now. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I think 2-3 weeks. I don't know.
And like I said in the beginning, do us a favor. Wherever you listen to this podcast, if you can comment, or not comment, if you can subscribe and also leave a 5-star review, that goes a long, long way into promoting our message and getting more people hearing our 2 average voices talking about native plants. With that, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thank you again, everyone. Andrew, thank you again for joining us today. Coming up next week, we have another best of episode, which should be Claudia West and Benjamin Vogt. Yeah.
So you guys thought we already went on vacation, but we're on vacation now. So I think, Fran, you just got back and I just left.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think we're passing in the night right now. So make sure you tune in for that. And until then, keep it native.
Woods, wetlands, and dales grows a bounty of beauty that never fails. Our native plants, so diverse and so rare, treasures of our land beyond compare. From the ferns below, soaring oaks above, each plant has a place, each plant is love. Monarch caterpillars launch milk, wheat so tall, bees buzz about, sipping nectar fall. Oh, native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand. To preserve our generations of calm and beauty and potency second to none. To protect and preserve the earth, to restore the native plant movement you just can't ignore.
Goldenrod, asters, and flowers galore. Monarch is so stunning, can't help but adore. Their colors, their fragrance, a feast for the eyes. Their value to wildlife, no need to disguise.
Native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.